Hello, my name is Ian DeLeon Case, and today I will be talking about how to fish. Give a man a fish and you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish and you feed him for a lifetime. Today I will be speaking about how to fish as well as how to increase your chances of catching one. I've been fishing since I was a boy, and I have learned many techniques over the years that attribute to my expertise. Fishing has three main steps: observing the location of where you are fishing and setting up your fishing pole with the correct rigging, and finally casting the bait into, in a successful manner that will heighten your chances of a catch. The first step I would like to talk about is observation, a very important step that will affect your chances of catching a meal. Observation of your environment is important when fishing. It can make or break your experience entirely. The first signs are very obvious. You need to look around to make sure there's no obstructions in the way of your cast. Fishing poles are long. They can be about 5 to 6 feet, and you need at least 10 to 15 feet of room behind you and in front of you to make a clean cast. The last thing you want is to set up your pole perfectly and end up getting caught in a tree or on a person. Another sign you should look for is cover. This can include rocks, bushes, trees, and/or man-made structures in the water. Fish like darkness depending on the time of the year. Rocks and bushes make great homes and hiding spots for the little fellas. Casting near these areas can increase your chances of them being curious and ultimately biting on your bait. The last sign of a decent fishing spot is if you can see fish out in the open, just swimming around freely. Fish freely swimming about are way easier to catch. You can visibly see when they will strike and where your bait is going in association with where the fish are resting. A school of 4 or more fish are very easy to spot, and you might just get lucky if you drag your bait near them. Once again, fish are very curious creatures. After surveying the water and landscape, you are ready to rig your pole with the proper bait to catch the fish that you're going after. The process of setting up your bait is going to determine what kind of fish you will catch, but to simplify everything, we'll discuss a common worm and hook with a weight attached. In this scenario, we will be focusing on catching just smaller fish. These little guys are hungry and aggressive, and that means they'll bite on almost anything. A simple fisherman's knot will keep your hook attached to the line of the pole. The hook needs to be small so that way the fish can actually fit it in their mouth. Once your hook is secure, a small mealworm or nightcrawler is just the perfect meal. You'll want to hook the worm directly onto the head and thread it through the body, just so that way you can keep it secure. Finally, you want to attach a weight to the line in order for the worm to sink down into the water. In order to avoid complications and snags, you need to attach the weight at least a foot above the hook. A small weight will be perfect, something about the size of a pea. Now, these images here are a little bit big, but they are about size of a pea. Snap-on weights are a good beginner tool just because, you just snap it right onto the line. There's no tying involved, and you can just pop them right off when you're done. The final step in attempting to catch a fish is tossing your line into the water in a smart and careful way. Throwing the bait in the water might seem like a straightforward task, but it can ruin your chances if done incorrectly. As previously mentioned, you need to look at where you're throwing, avoiding obstructions, but also keeping an eye out for hot spots. Fish love to feel safe, so these hot spots can look like rocks, bushes, or once again, trees. Another simple and great option is to visibly see the fish in the water and throw the bait either right on top of them or close to them. To minimize snags, you want to throw the bait just close enough to the structures to not get them tangled, but close enough to entice the fish to bite. The last step you need to consider is irritation and attraction. Sometimes you can get an instant bite, but other times the little creatures need a push. As previously mentioned, throwing the bait right on top of the fish will get them to react, hopefully irritating them enough to elicit a bite. Attraction is another factor, though. This will help in the process. A slight wiggle or jerk of the worm will attract the fish's attention, hopefully enough to get a strike. Today I have gone over quite a few steps in the process of fishing. Observing the waterscape, as well as the landscape will help you to avoid problems in catching fish, keeping an eye out for obstructions that could impede your progress as well. A simple bait setup, which includes a hook, a worm of some type, and a weight, will allow for an easy way to begin. Finally, after having surveyed your landscape and baited a hook, you are ready to toss the line in the water carefully to avoid obstacles. And a well placed worm in either a hot spot or out in the open is a great way to entice a strike. Fishing is relaxing and it's a rewarding process that will definitely keep you wanting more if done correctly. It is a skill that can save your life if remembered. You can only imagine survival. You're out in the world and you don't know what to do to catch a meal. Now you do. Thank you so much for listening and have a great day.